boat for 90 days. Patrolling out in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Northwest Africa. And since they're gone for that long, they need to make sure that they bring everything with them. So, if you were stuck on a submarine for 3 months, what would you bring? Food. Water. Food.
Limes.
Limes. They need to bring some kind of citrus fruits. What else? Cards. Yeah, they would bring card games, board games, other things to keep them entertained. All very important items, especially having food. They would cram about 12 tons of food on board the submarine. That is 24,000 pounds. But as I mentioned earlier, there isn't a lot of space inside, so that food was placed everywhere they could, which meant on the ground, underneath their bunks, hung up in ceiling pipes. They also converted one of their 2 onboard bathrooms into a pantry. Now for water, they had to ration their water as their desalinator on board, a machine that was able to purify salt water into fresh water, wasn't able to do as much for daily use. So that fresh water was only used for cooking, drinking, and maintaining their electric batteries, which of course left little to no water for what?
Washing.
Washing. Yeah, they were not bathing, brushing their teeth,
Shaving.
doing laundry, nothing. And they were only given 1 uniform and 2 pairs of underwear for that entire journey. Not to mention the internal temperature of the submarine ranged from about 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But no worries, you will not have to deal with the same conditions. We made a lot of modifications to the submarine. But I still ask you to please be aware of your surroundings as you make your way through the boat. Ceilings are low and narrow in places, stuff sticks out, and it is metal. Keep a good grip on any valuable item. Cell phones, keys, wallets, glasses. If anything falls beneath the bottom of the boat, we cannot guarantee that you will get it back. In that case, we'd like to thank you for your kind donation to the museum. I do encourage you to take photos. All I ask is that you turn your flash off. And as a quick heads up for storytelling, we're going to be using some sound effects, flashing lights, and a little bit of low lighting at points. Is this going to be a problem for anyone? Good. All right. If this does change at all during the tour, please speak up and let me know, all right? And last thing, due to limited time inside of the submarine, we are going to have to hold all questions until the very end of the tour, until we exit off. Or if you catch me in between rooms, I might have time to answer then. But with that being said, you can follow me up this ramp. I do encourage you to touch the outside up the boat as we head on in.
Knock, knock.
Aquí estaba el agua de presión hasta aquí y todo esto lleno de agua para que tenga un balanceo.
Make sure that we can get the entire tour inside. So go ahead and continue to just fill out the space here in front. You go right in front. Wow.
Can I go up here?
Stay right here because I do move around a lot and I don't want to accidentally elbow. I do gesticulate and move around. That's what happens when you have neurospicy and you have a hip problem. All right, welcome aboard the U505. We're currently standing inside of the petty officer's quarters. So this is where middle-ranking crew members used to sleep. Of course, this space would have looked completely different. For one, that hole would of course not existed. Instead of entering through the side of the submarine, instead the Germans would have come in through hatches, taking them down from the top deck using ladders inside. There's 3 main ways of getting on or off the submarine. We've also lowered the floor about a foot in height. So where I'm standing right now over the exposed electric batteries, this is where the original floor height would have been at. If this lets you know how low the ceilings actually were. Not to mention a second set of beds used to line this wall where you folks are currently standing. But of course, all the original bunk beds are still intact inside of this forward torpedo room here. Lowest ranking enlisted crew members used to sleep in this space, and yes, they would have slept directly next to the torpedoes. Now, another issue to deal with their beds is there's only 35 on board. Yet, they had a crew of 59. Yeah, so this is exactly what they did. They hot bunked. They slept in shifts. Someone's gonna wake up, go on their work day, and then another person is then going to roll right into this hot, sweaty, lice-infested bed. Ugh. Yeah, this is the day-to-day life on a submarine. However, of course, this is still a machine of war. And Germany was using their submarines to sink Allied supply ships that were traveling across the Atlantic Ocean. So, when one of those ships was spotted, the captain would ring the dive bell. This bell is going to tell the crew to start rotating valves on the sides of the boat. This is going to allow water to start filling up the ballast tanks. The ballast is that hollow, empty section that you actually just kind of pass through a portion of. It surrounds the boat like a hot dog bun. As it starts to fill up with water, the submarine becomes denser and heavier than the ocean around it, which causes it to submerge. Once beneath the surface of the ocean, the captain is going to climb up into the conning tower, that turret on top of the submarine, making use of the periscope and a rudimentary computer so he can figure out his firing sequence in order to aim that torpedo towards its target. He'll of course be communicating with his crew members. What they'll be listening for is their firing phrase. It is the word "los." It means release in German. Let's keep an ear out for that word. Now with that torpedo off, we now hear the ticking of a stopwatch. The Germans knew to the exact second when that torpedo should hit its target. So if there was silence at the end, they knew it was a miss, and they could possibly give the submarine's location away. What we're hearing now is that ship as it is being crushed beneath the ocean.
Can you see Remy?
Along with all of its supplies
Walk up closer.
and its crew on board.
Okay.
During its 3 years of service, the U505 would sink 8 vessels before it was eventually captured on June 4th, 1944. Yes, today is the anniversary of its capture, the 80th to be exact. And this was accomplished by Chicago native Captain Daniel Gallery and his hunter-killer task group 22.3. We'll go into a little bit more detail about the U505's capture once we step foot inside of the control room. But we're going to be passing through a few rooms in order to get there. First, which is directly behind me, is the kitchen. This is the galley. Once we pass through this particularly small kitchen, you'll see some more bunk beds, general officers' quarters. And then on your left, you'll see 2 little rooms. These are the radio and the sound room. And then on your right, behind a wooden wall in a nook, is a single bed and a desk. This was the captain's bed. Now, as you make your way through the submarine, I want you to keep in mind that the last captain of the U505, Captain Harold Longa, was 6'2". Yeah. So we're going to take the ramp here on the right into the kitchen, and we'll meet inside of the control room.
Okay, kids, let's go. There's more beds. There's an office. There's a captain's office. They got music. And a look on around. There's a bed back there.
It's a small typewriter. Oh, watch your head. BBC. It's a British ship. British Broadcasting Corporation, right?
Similar acronym, but I don't know, I can't remember the full acronym for the company.
Bundis or something?
It's I know one of the B stands for Bavaria.
Oh.
But I know the company
Like BMW, yeah.
But the company still exists, but it's of course changed names, merged, and all kinds of things since the 40s. Keep making your way in, folks. Alright, so we've now made it to the control room. Here, we're going to be talking about the U505's capture, and we're going to continue on until the rest of the tour. So, the U505, as I mentioned, was captured on June 4th. But it was being hunted by the Americans for a couple of weeks. And one day, while this submarine was up on the surface of the ocean, enemy aircraft was spotted. And in order to get down as quickly as possible without being detected, the captain would ring the crash dive bell. This more emergency sounding bell is going to tell anyone who wasn't on duty to run all the way to that forward torpedo room that you just saw. They would then dogpile on one another, trying to push the nose of the submarine down. And along with the ballast, we'll be able to submerge in under 37 seconds. Now the U505 would go into stealth mode. They would turn off their lights to conserve power, and anybody not on duty was sent to bed. Because the sleeping man is generally going to be a quiet man. Sound travels a lot further underwater. So a conversation above a whisper, tools dropping, could all be picked up for miles. Especially because of that pinging sound that we can hear. Do you know what that is?
Sonar.
Sonar, yeah. This is the active sonar from the Americans. What the Americans are doing is they are sending out sound waves beneath the ocean. Once those sound waves hit an object, they bounce and reverberate back. The Americans are able to pick them up. Very similar to dolphins and bats' echolocation. This not only lets the Americans know where something is, but how far away, like this submarine. So, to continue to outrun the Americans' pursuit, the U505 is going to head deeper and deeper into the ocean. The Germans have to be very careful about how deep they actually go. Because if this submarine were to hit 755 feet, it wouldn't be able to withstand the increasing pressure from the ocean, and it would slowly be crushed like a tin can. This is what is known as crush death. But the ocean's pressure isn't the only concern. Germans also do not want to deal with depth charges. Underwater explosives dropped down from the surface by the Americans with a splash. They'll sink down to submarine depth and immediately explode. And there are those splashes. So all the Germans can do now is hold on and brace for impact. With depth charges exploding around the submarine, one of them managed to hit near the rudders, which jammed them and made them stuck in one direction. This also forced the boat to start spinning out of control into a death spiral, getting closer and closer towards crush death. Now, Captain Longa had a decision to make. He could either allow the submarine to continue its downward spiral with crew and classified intelligence on board, or he could rise up to the surface and surrender to the Americans. And that is what he decided to do. Once on the surface, the captain is second in command, and the radio man climbed up through the conning tower here, outside of the submarine, where they were then met with 6 minutes of continuous gunfire by American forces. During this gunfire, Captain Longa was actually shot and injured in the leg, while their radio man was shot and killed. He was the only casualty of this entire mission. So with their captain now wounded and incapacitated, the crew started to abandon the submarine. But a few of them were able to start their scuttling process before they got off. What they wanted to do is purposefully sink the sub by allowing water to come inside through a pipe known as a sea straighter. So once the Germans had escaped, the American boarding party came on. Ignoring the water that was coming in, they ran to grab the intelligence, 8 bags worth of documentation, including 2 Enigma machines and a code book. Once those had been safely secured, the Americans started to look for the flood. And eventually they stumbled across the sea straighter and noticed that in their haste, the Germans did not dispose of the lid as it was sitting directly next to the pipe on the floor, which allowed the Americans to put the lid back on and seal the flood. However, the rudder is still stuck. The controls in the control room weren't working. So the Americans started to make their way through the submarine to find the manual controls to the rudder to straighten it out and stop it from spinning up on the surface. We're going to continue and we're going to follow their path. So you all are going to go to the right and I'm going to go to the left because I've got workers' comp. Made our way through the diesel engine room and have ended up here in the electric motors, following the same path that the American boarding party made. Very similarly to how you see now, they of course hit a sealed hatch. Now hatches on submarines are made to be watertight, so there's only a few reasons as to why this would have been shut in the first place. 1, flooding. But this is worse than the flooding they were just dealing with. Gallons of ocean water could be right behind here, and if it opened up, it would come rushing out, filling other sections of the submarine, sinking it before anyone could get off in time. It could also be booby-trapped. To try and prevent their boats from being captured, the Germans would place explosives known as scuttling charges that they would hide throughout the boat. And one of them could have been rigged right behind this door. It's not looking so good for the Americans. However, Captain Daniel Gallery really wanted to capture the U505, so they need those manual controls. So a few of his men decided to brace against this hatch, and they opened it up, and they found that there was absolutely nothing wrong with the rear torpedo room. It was intact. A little bit of water was found inside though. It was just from a pipe that had burst in the bathroom. And of course, the manual controls that they were looking for is that big steering wheel all the way at the very back. This allowed the Americans to finally straighten the rudders out, get a tow line attached, and the U505 was towed across the Atlantic Ocean to a British Allied port in Bermuda. Now I am going to give you some time to come up here and take a look if you would like. All I ask is you keep your feet on this side of the hatch. Please do not. Any asked us if we would like a submarine.
Fartregere.
And all we had to do was pay shipping and handling to get it.
Tegler.
So the money was raised and it was towed here in 1954 from New Hampshire through the St. Lawrence Seaway for the Great Lakes. And then this 692-ton submarine was towed out of Lake Michigan across Lakeshore Drive. And then we sat it outside on our back lawn for 50 years. So, what happens to a giant metal boat when it sits outside for that long?
Rust.
It gets rusty, yes. This boat rusted a lot. So eventually we removed all the rust, restored damaged sections, and then repainted the submarine back to its original colors that you see today. Then we dug out a giant hole in our front lawn in 2004, moved the submarine, lowering it 4 inches at a time like it was a game of Jenga, and then built the exhibit hall around, and now here she stands today, of course, as a war memorial to the thousands who died in the battles of the Atlantic in World War I and World War II. And this is the end of our tour. Thank you all so much for coming out today on such a historic day for the U505. If you have any questions, I will be down at the end to answer any, but if not, you enjoy the rest of your day. You're welcome to continue to take a look if you'd like. If not, we're going to exit out right here on the right.
What you think?
Nice.
Your first submarine fun? Ein Haus. You going up?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a look.
This is the outside of the submarine. U505.
And part of the reason why he saves the boat is because he uses
Excuse me?
like he gets a lot of flack for it at the end of the war back home in Germany. A lot of hardcore Germans thought that he should have sank the boat, and I think very thankfully for the 58 guys that made it off the boat, he made the right decision. It's a beautiful boat. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I captured the man of the U505 and the hour.
20mm.
Me costó un poquito de trabajo al principio.
It's a small rubber boat.
The capture of the U505 and its crew not only wielded a treasure trove of technical intelligence, but also opened a window onto life on board the enemy vessels. For the 59 men aboard this at-night sea, this
It's an Enigma machine. Oh, simulation. Here's the Enigma machine over here. Wow, look at that.
Enigma code.
The periscope.
I don't like water, so I didn't have It's down for maintenance. There's another one over here. I want
Depth is controlled by changing the angle of the forward diving place. This diverts the flow of water, making the boat go up and down. Dive remains anchored. You can tell at depth by the blue here. Depth change.
Ella quita esto lo de adentro, güey.
Schlaufen.
Esto mismo allá adentro.
stand here and look up the periscope. See how that works?
Periscope.
What do you see? Oh my god.
Was ist das? Ein Torpedo. There's the front of it. Look at that. Ein anderer Torpedo. So the shell looks like. Tail assembly. Oh, there's the bow and a torpedo coming out of the front, the bow. Suspended torpedo coming out the tube.
Hey, just slow down, slow down.
In Germany, leaving the boat was a the Greeks were told by their families that they were lost and killed in action on that Christmas. It was only late in 1945, when the war was over, that they had what must have been the happiest surprise of their lives. The Americans notified them that the crew had been saved, and the sons, husbands, and fathers they thought were lost returned on their home. Europe rebuilt democracies where dictators had once ruled. And 20 years after the war, Captain Gallo, now Captain Gallo, and the city fired Captain Gallo.
Bottom of the periscope. Propellers. Dual rudders.
That's it only. We could go through there.
Stern of the boat. Mics up there. Looks like a 37. and those are probably dual 20s.
Oh, Europe. I mean, I could probably spend a year there.
Yeah, I was there
1,000-year-old castles and stuff.
bike ride when I was in my teens, I think still, late teens. About a 5 weeks throughout Europe.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to see it.
World War I produced the leading U-boat ace of all time, not World War II. He sunk 194 ships, and his name
Airplane?
above.
It was an airplane?
No, U-boats.
U.
Yeah, U-boat captain. World War I. This whole thing starts in World War I with U-boats. This is just an extension of it, World War II. But this guy that sunk the 194, I love his name. His name was Lothar Honanat de la Pierre.
Yes, it was.
That's a name.
Wow, I hope he earned it.
He did.
Wow.
Unless you were on the other end, then you didn't like him so much. But he was really good at what he did. Yeah.
And how did he do it?
Well, he went on one particular mission. He sunk 57 ships in 4 months, only used 4 torpedoes. Because the World War I submarines had deck guns, and it's cheaper. So rather than shoot a $10,000 torpedo, it really worth 10 grand in World War II, they would turn their deck gun around, usually tell you, I'm going to sink you now, so lower your boats and paddle away. They didn't want to kill the merchantmen so much. So they would poke holes in you and roll you. So when World War I starts, the subs go out and they're blasting everything. Wilson calls up the Kaiser and says, hey man, I'm not at war with you. Stop blowing up my merchant ships unless you want me to be at war with you. So the Germans said, cool, we're going to use the prize regulations. We're going to pull alongside and say, who are you? Identify. The British were like, that's great. They hit decoys. So I pull alongside, who are you? We're talking about who you are. You load a deck gun and turn it outward and drop a panel and put a hole in my boat. So the Germans went back to the Kaiser. They're like, hey, this isn't working. They got decoys out there. So he's like, yeah, last time you went to unrestricted, Wilson's on the phone with me. Oh, sinking Lusitania. Legitimate target, bad public relations. So everybody's getting mad at them. But Wilson says, give me no part of this European war. I'm not involved in this mess. I want nothing to do with it. By the way, if you want to come here and go shopping for munitions, okay. He knows the British merchant fleet can come. The Germans can't stop them. He knows the German merchant fleet can't go shopping. The British won't let them. So he's taking sides. So the Germans get jobs along the docks, and they're putting incendiary devices in ships going to England. They're mysteriously burning in the middle of the ocean. Then the Germans set Black Tom Island on fire, which is in Manhattan Bay. It's stacked with munitions. Millions of pounds of munitions pulls up, blows the windows out of Manhattan, scares everybody to death in New York. Wilson gets on the radio and says, America, we have a bit of a problem here. We have saboteurs. But he's pretending to be neutral. While this is going on, the Germans build submarines called U-cruisers. It's an underwater merchant navy. They come under the Atlantic, pop up in American waters where the British cannot sink them. Because Wilson said, if you can get here, you can buy stuff. They're loading up their submarines with stuff they need. Their sailors are giving our sailors tours of their U-boats while Wilson's pretending to be neutral while their saboteurs are blowing our stuff up. So finally, the Germans get desperate in World War I on land and they say, I don't care who you are, you're going to England, you're getting blown up. This is January 1917. April 1917, Wilson finally says, you know what, there's no talking to you, obviously, we're at war. Fast forward, World War II comes. Roosevelt, I want no part of this war, do not involve me in this war. By the way, I'm using the American Navy to escort British convoys halfway across the Atlantic where the Brits will pick them up the rest of the way. So the Germans are like, are you in this or out of it? So then they said, you may shoot at U-boats if you want to. We're not at war with you. So the U-boats are shooting at destroyers. They split the Reuben James in half, one of our destroyers. They kill a third of the crew. So Roosevelt's like, well, what's up? Well, Pearl Harbor happened. All bets went out the window. So if this sounds familiar with the latest little problem in Europe, no, we're not part part of this. Would you like to buy some guns?
Heck yeah.
I love history.
Wow.
Just
It repeats itself over and
Do you have history with the U-boats? Like, did you used to do anything with them?
Me personally, I've just been a little kid. They taught me to read, Fun with Dick and Jane, C Spot Run. I picked up history books. It's all I read. I'm fascinated by what these people do a lot of times. These guys were. That guy was. I said, you got a lot of guesses, Mr. You go into a boat that's sinking. It's turning in circles. You don't know anything about it because you're not a submariner. It's scheduled to explode. There could have been armed Germans on board. He said, oh, I was 21. That's what he said. One of the guys on here, Hans Gobler, never met him, but I read his book. He joins the Navy at 17. He's a submariner. He's celebrating his 19th birthday on the boat. He's on a war patrol. He's learning English. And the other German sailors are like, why are you learning the language of our enemies? Now keep in mind, he's 19. He says, when we conquer the United States, I want to talk to the girls. At 19, I was buying my second used car. This guy's on a war patrol, I mean, these guys are amazing. And they won't take old people because old people wouldn't do something like this. My dad went in at 19 of old.
Yeah, I mean, stupid.
He says, yeah, you haven't figured out you shouldn't do that.
That's right. You don't have that editing skill yet.
It's
Your frontal lobe is not formed until 25.
Yeah, I was immortal at 19. I'm 64.
Right. You would never go in there.
Never do that. I'd be like, send a 19-year-old.
One of these pumps.
I am too old for this.
All right. Well, and the quarters aren't too cozy, and we kind of expanded.
And the last captain was 6'1".
Oh.
I'm 5'9", and we're missing a row of bunks in there for the tour. There's spare parts boxes aren't there, and I'm still banging my head and turning sideways in there. And this cat, and he was an old man. Their last captain was 41. By U-boat standards, he was old, but their second captain committed suicide in Connington. So they thought the crew needed like a father figure. So they brought in a 41-year-old reservist. And I don't know why he ever took that job.
Right?
But he had the dubious distinction of being the only submarine captain and his submarine captured by the U.S. Navy in World War II. He got his leg shot up. He was in the Guadalcanal's infirmary. And our captain came in and said, I have your boat in tow. And Harold Langen said, oh, I'm in trouble. And our captain said, no, you're not. So when this war's over, Germany will be under different management.
Oh.
Your bosses are about to get fired.
Yep.
You're welcome. I'm Tom. Enjoy your visit. And by the way, it's June 4th, the 80th anniversary of the capture.
Anything special going on for the anniversary?
Nah, they did it already this morning. They had a breakfast over here for some of the big donors and stuff.
Okay.
But they didn't do what I thought they would do more. For the 75th, they had the media down here and everything, and for the 80th, they're
like whatever. We'll wait for 85th, I guess.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think they should have done more. But I would have had some media down here, kind of punch it up a little bit. They didn't.
Well, my friend said I had to come here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great day,
I travel around the country doing DoorDash and Uber Eats.
Yeah.
And that's how I make my money. I just go to forts and
this is the museum in the museum.
Yeah. I haven't seen the museum yet. I just went here, straight here.
Oh yeah, this is around the world. I've met people from 6 different continents and countries. I don't even know how many countries I've met, and they have come down here and said, "I'm here for this."
Yeah.
It's a draw. It's an absolute unbelievable draw. We have one. The Germans have 2. The English have 1 cut up like a sausage. That's it. There's only 4 in the world. So if you want to see one, you have to come to one of these places. And this is the only Type 9 to walk through. The Germans have a Type 7, which is basically a smaller version of a 9, and they have a Type 21, the most advanced of the U-boats. So if you want to see a Type 9C, you're coming here. That's all you can do.
I worked for a company, SSI, Strategic Simulations Incorporated, and they made a computer game. I think it was called, was it like Silent Service or Steel Hunters or something like that, where we had a game where we pilot the U-boats.
I'm not much into video gaming, but it is kind of keeping almost the history alive of some things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of World War II games.
Because if you read the history books, then you want to see a movie or play a game, which makes you want to read the history books.
Right.
So it's a Ouroboros kind of thing.
I think it did help out.
Yeah. It sparks itself. Because I'd never liked history, and then, in high school, I was like, oh, wow, That's when I
Yeah,
started
that's
liking
that's the only subject I ever ran to. Everything else I had no interest. I barely got through these other classes. But when it was history, I was there. I mean, it just fascinates me. I don't know why, but it does. But that's why I'm down here 2 days a week. The other 3 days I'm on patrol around the building. 2 days I'm down here, and I enjoy my days down here. Let's say I've met people that in the Cold War were chasing the Russian boats.
Yeah.
One guy said to me, he goes, "We weren't worried at all about the Russian boats in the 60s because they made so much noise. We
Yeah,
always knew where they were."
clang, yeah. I went to Kingsland in Georgia, where they had the base there, and they had a dry dock. And they said, my dress is in South Dakota now, so they had the South Dakota there in dry dock. And I was thinking, so I'm the World War II mindset. I'm thinking South Dakota was a battleship.
Right.
And it's like I thought they took that apart. You have the South Dakota here, and they said, no, it's a submarine. Why are you calling it South Dakota when it's a submarine?
Yeah, they changed that. We don't have any more battleships.
Yeah,
Well, like one of our main classes is the Ohio class. You know, the missile boats, the boomers.
Yeah.
And I don't know if any of that will ever become a submarine. The Nautilus is in Groton, Connecticut. The first nuke is on display. But they tell me you can't go through the
I missed
nuclear
that.
reactor. But that's where it was built, and now it's I don't know how long. I guess the last 20, 25 years it's been a museum. So that's where they built it.
There's too many things to see.
Yeah. Well, while you're in Chicago, about 30 miles west of here is a place called Cantigny, or Cantigny. It's Cantigny, and it's Robert McCormick's house. He died in the 50s. They turned the whole grounds and the house and everything into a museum. It's a World War II. I should say World War II. It's First Division Museum. It starts
big red one.
Starts in the Spanish-American War and goes through World War I, World War II. And I guess they didn't do much in Korea, but it goes into Vietnam then. And you just keep going through, and you're in different wars and different parts.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah.
It is really cool. They got a lot of vehicles there, historic vehicles. It's I haven't been there in a number of years. I was going to go in 2020. Of course, the whole world came to a crashing stop.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And then 21, even everybody with the masks and everything. So now I'm going to get to these places this summer.
2020, that's when I burst a blood vessel in my eye, so that's why I had the patch.
Yeah.
It's been like that since then.
Yeah, I'm getting old too.
My dad used to always say that. Shell getting old? Yeah, I guess. It is.
Yeah. Starting to feel it.
Guess
I
I'll
got
go
here, I was 45, now I'm 64. I don't know where that 19 years went.
one more year for retirement.
Yeah, actually November I'm going to pull the plug.
You gonna still stay here? Or?
Yeah, I'm going to hang around because my leases aren't usually up till spring. Then I got to make a decision whether I'm going to head off for someplace else. So, but there's other museums around. I might go out of state for a good one. Who knows?
Yeah. I've always wanted to go to Europe and, you know, be somewhere on a tour guide. It's like the boarding party. Depth charges